center a little bit because it's wobbling. I'm gonna watch the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze. It's an old movie. You saw it, Ghost?
Yeah, when they're doing the.
They're doing the thing. He's dead. She's alive, but he's there. Yes. It's centering, and sometimes it's by feeling. It's not necessarily just touching it.
No promises.
Okay.
You ready?
Could you hand me one of those balls? A little one? I'll try a little one. Actually, a bigger one. Can I do a little big one? Bigger one.
So one of the things you guys have to keep in mind when doing this is your hands have to be wet.
Thanks.
All right, if they're dry, there's going to be too much friction, and your clay is going to get all weird and funky on you. Oh man, 7 years.
Shoulder surgery later. Okay, yeah. So this is my first time back since shoulder surgery, so I will do my best. I find it's really important to get as close to the wheel and bond as you can. You know what? Put this on backwards. You strong? You feel strong today? No. Who's strong? You're strong. Okay. I just want to flip this. I want to flip it so the wheel's facing me this way. Ready? The whole table. I'm going to turn the whole thing. Hold on 1 second. Whole table around. Oh, the sound. You'll hear some serious squishy sounds with the clay.
Oh my God, the sound. What? These are the parents. What's wrong with them? We're like matching. Oh, I thought you were some shadow. I gave you a lesson.
Okay, these come off. You want to make sure it's really tight in there and they're locked in place.
Here you go, girl.
All right, thank you.
The first pass I do, you know,
Yeah.
Okay. And the little lines will kind of help.
No.
There's hair in my clay. That's not my hair.
Oh.
I think it's my hair.
That's how my coffee is stuff is. I have issues.
My pocket here. I used to get these sponges in here.
And I was a bagel boy, and I was like, Mom, can you call me?
Priscilla.
What?
Pay attention.
I thought she was talking to you.
No. We're doing a demo on how to throw clay. So,
Oh, so much fun.
one of the things, like I said, you have to keep your hands wet when you're doing this.
Yeah.
And you have to use your body, okay?
Yes.
Doesn't matter how strong you are in your arms, you're using your body as leverage. So you wedge your elbow into like your hip area here, and you use that as leverage. You gotta throw your whole body into this. It's not like, oh, let me just play with my fingertips.
That's right. Because you have to remember, you control the clay. So I do the same. I wedge it into my hip bone. This is my anchor hand. This is the strength. This one is the holding hand. I just kind of hold it. But this is the one I definitely anchor. So you need to seriously get it into your hip. And I don't even like to look at it. I just like to feel it. And it feels centered. Woo. Feel it? All right? So it just feels like it's not wobbling as much. The rib tools, this no good. Could you answer that phone?
I'll use this.
Yeah, I forgot to put the rib tools out. It's for me?
Another thing you guys have to keep in mind, this part of your hand needs to always be on the bat itself. You don't want to have it sort of floating up here until you actually start pulling up your walls. Because you're going to get clay that sort of builds up on the edge, so you want to keep everything sort of squished into the center. You're dealing with forces of gravity pushing your clay down when you're trying to bring it up, and you're also dealing with the centrifugal force of it trying to push it out when you're trying to keep it in.
Yeah.
Okay?
And the next thing you want to do, once you get it centered, and we both have it pretty centered, see they're pretty still, they're not wobbling all over the place when you first turned it on, and trust me, it'll take you a while to get it centered, just to feel, and I like to just do it by feel, but you need to cone and press, and all the directions are right here. Everything we're saying is right here. So first we did the ball, now we're going to cone and press. Now to cone and press, right, Mrs. Melchior is coning, so I actually use this, I lock my thumbs, I press it down like a pancake, but this hand is holding it in, and it's a little wobble, and my wobble's gone, and I'm holding it in. And now so now I pressed it down, now I want to cone it up. Heel in, hand, what did they say, was this on?
It was the guidance that you called yesterday.
Oh, okay. And now I'm just coning up. The tricky part is, how do you think we get it off of this when we're done? Think we can just lift it off? So coning, and I got it pretty centered, I'm happy with it. And you need to do this at least, how many times? I'm gonna say at least 3 or 4 times, cone and press. By cone and pressing, you're doing something important. You're mixing the clay together. You wedged it, you need it has to be nice and wedged. So we worked on those pieces before you got here this morning. So we wedged the clay, got it nice and round, and now we're just mixing it. I flattened it, and I'm gonna cone it up again. I'm gonna cone, you got air bubble. And a secret for air bubbles, you take your needle tool and pop it like a pimple. Sorry, pop it like a pimple. And there you go. Oh, you're gonna cut it? Take some
Popping
out.
it a
Okay.
lot.
And then I'm gonna cone it up again. So once I have it, this feels nice, you can feel it. The clay should be, you can't use old clay and new clay all mushed together and try to do it. The clay has to be the same consistency, the same feeling to the whole piece. So if you try to mix some oddball pieces, the piece feels a little hard, a piece feels soft, you'll feel it when this happens, and you'll feel lumps and bumps in it, and it's not going to work for you right at all. We have a couple natural sponges, guys. These aren't what we clean the sink out. These are expensive little life sponges. This one, and I have some flat ones. I put it in your bucket.
Yep,
some flat ones.
got it.
All right. And this is nice because she has this little thing here. She can go like that. There you go. Extra stuff you want to put on there that you cut off. I don't have one here. And I'm going to just flat. And then the next thing I'm going to do, after I coned it and pressed it, it feels nice. What I'm going to try to do is pull a wall up to make a shape. And this is the fun part. It's a little tricky. All right, so I have it kind of flattened. Sometimes you lock your hands, lock your thumbs together. Your hands should be attached.
Yeah, you always want your hands working together because if they're not moving at the same speed, one can sort of have uneven pressure, and then you can.
And you see my hands aren't moving at all, right? This is perfectly level. Oop, and you can feel when it goes, oop, got one off a little bit. Sometimes it'll go off when you're making. And if it gets really crazy, what kind of pot do you have? What's his name?
Matt Potter Biloxi, come on.
George
Talked about
Orr.
it yesterday.
Come on. You guys could be millionaires with a piece of that pottery.
Yeah, remember what's on the bottom of the pot.
Yo, go. George Orr.
I'm gonna.
All right, so I'm gonna actually pull. I'm gonna start to pull the wall up. So what I do, and Mrs. Melchior is gonna see, she's actually holding it steady, and actually it's right here. Coning. Now right here, I'll clean this off. Obviously these are demonstration pieces. We'll wash them off a little. Now you're gonna pinch the center. You're gonna make a hole in the middle.
And you just drop your thumb in.
Yep, just drop your thumb in. It's gonna make a hole. Put your thumbs. And you can kind of go back and forth a little bit. Keep your thumbs
And
wet.
think about, okay, so this is the bottom of the bat, and your thumb is here. You've got about maybe like 1.5 inches bottom to your pot. That's way too thick. You want to push down so it's about, ½ inch or so.
And what I do is we'll stop it just to make sure. What you can do is you stop it and we'll test it. You'll put the needle tool in the bottom and pick it up like you're measuring. And if it's too thin, the bottom will crack on you when it dries. Most likely you get cracks. Or if you leave water in the bottom, it'll crack.
And
If it's too thick, you can get air bubbles. But if it's too thick, you can always trim it off later. And you'll see all on this side, you'll see trimming, how to trim the pots and a couple things like that.
My pot is on the bottom.
When I pull the wall up, I do like to slow it down when we pull it up. Right now we're just making the hole, we centered. And you slow it down a notch when you do your pulling.
Centering, you have to be at the fastest speed.
And my shoulder feels okay.
Good.
Of course I got a little baby one here.
Yeah.
It's a baby one.
Some people, when they pull up the walls, they'll use the sponges on the outside. I like to use my fingers because I like to feel the clay. I like to know what it's doing.
Right, and sometimes you can feel the air bubble. Sometimes you'll feel a
Yes.
little bubble. If you feel something wrong with the wall, when you have your fingers on it, you feel it way better.
So when you're pulling, you should lock your thumbs, and your fingers are sort of not, I don't want to say pinching, because then that sort of thinks you're going to think you're going to squish in a lot, but they kind of go up together like this.
And they have to
that's-
meet. Right.
Yeah, you have to pull up your clay together. You're taking this big thick lump and you're gonna pull it up straight. Okay. Again, you're fighting against that centrifugal force. It wants to make a big flat bowl or a big flat plate, but you have to keep it so that the easiest thing to throw is like a cylinder. Just try to throw a nice tall cylinder. Okay. So you start at the bottom. You kind of pick up some clay in your fingers. You want to make sure your clay is nice and wet. And I keep my fingers moving together. Just some air bubbles. Just wedges for like 5 minutes.
I will wash my hands.
Just sit right there.
It works. It's on. There's water. That orange soap is the most amazing soap. Way better than the bath soap. Yeah, I'm still working on my hole here. Once I get it to the depth I think I want it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it. And I'm going to poke my needle tool in the center.
My walls are getting a little out of control now.
Back here. And I'm just going to double check. And I don't want to go any deeper than that for the floor. All right, so I'm good. All right. You drive a car, it's good. Remember, you can set it where you want it. I wouldn't keep your foot on it because you can accidentally get nervous and go faster or slower.
Yeah, it's not like driving a car.
Yeah, so I would just get it set to the speed you want and then take your foot away. There is emergency shut-offs. There's a switch on each side, so I have to shut it off. There's a switch here. Okay, this is my emergency. Add frontwards, backwards, and this will shut it off for emergency. Make sure your IDs are off, guys. No IDs on.
Or scarves, or long necklaces, or long ponytails. You know, like you're gonna want to put all your hair back.
Pants.
See how I have a nice high bun. I look good today, right?
Okay. I'm going to slow it down. I slow it down a little bit. You're going the same speed. You're doing good. I slow it down a tiny bit when I'm going to the stuff here. When I'm pulling, I go a little bit slower.
Yeah, I'm gonna slow down a second. Just trying to show what my is here.
And this is cool because you can take these tools, you can do stuff with them, you can trim stuff, you can make, this one has a little glaze on it from somebody else. My rib tools. My favorite tools are rib tool, which is,
What do you guys think? You want to try this or what?
When I was like 7, my parents got me a pottery, like they made that for Christmas.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Really?
And it never worked because it was like this little battery operated thing. Yeah. Yeah. I remember being very aggravated with that, but like who thinks that for a 7-year-old? You know what I mean? I had the same thing.
so Keone, I have the metal rib tools that I really love because they flex, but these rust. All right, I also have wood ones, but if you want a metal one, here's a metal one too.
Cool, thanks.
All right, I love these. These are my favorite little tools. They do a lot of stuff. I can actually, they bend, they flex. I can clean up a little bit. Before I pull my wall up, I can get it. And I don't have a little plump placer like you do. I'm a little jealous about that.
You want to check your walls. So as you're pulling up the walls, you don't want your fingers to come together when you get to the top because then you're going to get like a paper thin edge to your pot. You don't want that. If it starts to get thin, you can always kind of just pinch it and press down with just one finger, kind of like this, and that'll give you a nice flat edge as you're pulling up.
Priscilla, would you bring that thing with a feather? I want to take a look at that. The feather, the top of the feather, right on the counter. Pass that around. This is done on the wheel. And you can see actually, the thinner the walls, actually it's more challenging. but you have more problems or accidents.
As you're pulling up your pot, if it starts to flare out and you don't want that to happen until you're ready to start shaping, you can do what's called collaring. So it's kind of what it sounds like a collar on your neck.
Like this, the one we just passed around, I call it like choking the top.
Yeah.
Where's that one that's going around?
So you just make sure your
You see
hands
it?
are really wet.
You have it? Priscilla, where'd that one go? Oh, you have it? You see what we're talking about, how you can pinch the neck closed? That's called collaring or choking it, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can do this run a couple times, so don't feel you have to pull it up and that's it.
No, you want to pull multiple times.
Multiple times, so the process is repeating. All right, so I'm locking my fingers together, locking my hips, make sure nothing's steady, and then I'm just going to start pulling. And I'm using these two fingers, just like Mrs. Melchione did. And it's almost like you pretend that they want to meet, but there's a big wall in the middle. Now, when you want to do some funky stuff, like that big bow, then you're going to offset your fingers to make some funky shapes happen. But first, you want to just do straight pull up. And then as you get skilled, you can try some different things. Move your fingers out askew, and then that's how that big belly happened, popped out, because one finger wasn't in line with the other finger. All right, so it's just, first you want to try to line them up, and then you play later. Once you get your first pull, and it's successful, then you can play and do some funky things.
And whenever you put your hands inside the pot, just be aware of where the edge of the pot is, because if you hit it with your knuckle or your finger, you might knock it off and, you know, knock it off center or get a weird lump.
It's short.
Is that what time cents?
43, right? No, 48.
We have time? What time in a minute? We need a timekeeper.
Isn't it 28 minutes?
There's a half day schedule up top there. See it, half day? Does that say half day? Oh no, it says period A. Does that say half day or period A? Miss Nugget, on the drafting desk, there's underneath the cutting board, there's a half day schedule. It's like on the corner, you lift the cutting board up. I should have,
Yeah, 8:48.
just on the corner towards the left. Just lift that up. You should see a half day schedule under there.
Okay. So, right now, like my pot, the walls are like between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thick, and it's like pretty good. You want to make sure that one of the harder things about throwing is making sure that the actually, well, if I were to cut this in half this way, you want the walls to be straight and even the whole way down. You don't want the bottom to be really thick and the top to be really thin. So that's part of the practice of doing this, is doing it over and over again until you really can understand how the clay works and understand why it feels the way it does in your fingers. So that's why, like, I don't like to throw with a sponge in my hand, because I can't feel what's happening. I like to have that control. Once you get to be really good at it, you can use a sponge, or I will save the sponge for the end if I want nice smooth edges on the outside of my pot. Some people want the finger marks. They want to have sort of that spiral look on the outside of their pot.
Or you can do crazy designs with it. You can take your tool and you can do a
do it
little
on
design,
purpose, yeah.
you know, and make something happen while you're turning it.
Plus does end at 8:48.
Yes.
So what time do we have now?
It's 45. So we got
Okay, I want to show you how to cut one off. All right, let's just cut these off for I'm not done, but I'm just going to stop it for demonstration. I was going to actually choke and pull a piece in for you to see it, how it goes in. But I just want to show you how to remove it, okay? So you're finished. The cleanup part, all right? You need to actually, all this has to be clean. This wheel comes off as clean, this surface is clean. But to remove it, what you're going to do is, I didn't finish mine, but that's okay. I was going to actually go in and choke it and make a little mouthpiece on it. But this is very thick still on the bottom. If you want to, you can trim some off. These are cool, the little ribbon tools. I have